So I want to talk to you today about designing for happiness. But first, I want to talk to you about designing a deck for a happiness talk. So there's a few ground rules here. First, no bright yellow and no smiley faces. So with that said, I want to present to you, keep an open mind, my deck. So there's a reason that this design works. The forms, the colors, they all evoke emotions. As well, there's a positive association around any past experiences we've had with a similar design. So I want to talk to you about the power design has to elevate our happiness and elevate our well-being. Happiness is design's greatest gift and greatest result. My own search for happiness started about 2 years ago in the strategic design program at Parsons New School. This also happened to be the height of the pandemic. So during this time, many of us were questioning, well, first we were all questioning location, right? But also purpose and fulfillment. And with that, how we were contributing to the greater good and to human rights. So my research, I became fascinated with the neuroscience of happiness, and I started my own research on the impact of design on societal happiness. So in my research, I found 3 key insights, and those are that creatives are searching for more fulfilling and meaningful work. So this is in order to create better business results as well impact on the world. We also see that people are actively designing for equitable change. The next insight is that there is a lack of and a clear need for more empathy. And with this, I'm talking about empathy to be truly human, to be intrinsic, and no longer just a check mark in the design process. And then the final insight is that happiness is a critical competitive advantage. So there's a positive movement happening, we all see it, right, for people and planet in terms of the priority of wellness and sustainability. We also see this corporate shift to wellness for a happier and healthier work culture. So the reality here is that we all want to be happy, right? In one way or another, we want to find happiness, whether that's in our relationships, happiness in our own bodies and in our own skin, happiness in our finances or our work, or even our small daily decisions boosting our mood. So if we all want to be happy, as creatives, why are we not designing for happiness? That's where I come in. So I've created a Happinessled design framework. So this framework is made of 3 key principles. If you understand these 3 principles, you can unlock happiness as a critical competitive advantage for your brand. So I'll walk you through the principles. To apply these, first you're going to get insightful. Next, you're going to design on purpose. And last, you're going to make it social. So we'll start with the first of the framework. The first principle is to get insightful. So with this, you need to understand, of course, your target audience, who you're designing for, and what happiness means to them. But with that, I'd like to note here that designing for happiness is not void of the harsh realities of life. It's actually the complete opposite. So you actually need to take the time to understand your user, to understand their pain points, and in turn, solve to design for happiness. So I want you to think of the happiest place on earth. All right, Disney parks. So Disney infuses design in everything that they do, or happiness in all of their designs. And as you can imagine, designing for virtually every person to visit the parks, that's a huge audience. How do you do that? So they understand people's fundamental need to feel safe. And actually, the parks are designed with this in mind. They're designed to be people-size, to fulfill this primal need that we all have in common. They also design a transition. So if you've ever been, you notice that when you go into the park, you're transitioned from your outside world into the one that they've created. So I want to talk about the next principle, which is to design on purpose. So now that you know your target audience and what happiness means to them, you can design purposefully to evoke specific emotions from them. So think about Nike advertisements. Nike doesn't advertise their products. They actually advertise their brand and their identity. And they do so to evoke specific emotions from these advertisements. And this connects us with our own values, with their purpose of that ad. So actually, studies show that 90% of all purchases are emotional. And a happy consumer which is one that has a positive emotional response when interacting with your product or your website. Happy consumers are more likely to return, more likely to be loyal, and more likely to forgive you if problems arise in the future. So we want happy consumers, right? Those are all benefits to us. With that, I'm going to move on to the next principle, which is to make it social. And I'm not talking about social media or followers here. I'm talking about how do we design an opportunity for consumers to connect with our brand. So I'm going to ask by raise of hands here, how many of you have ever binge-watched a show in order to talk to coworkers or friends with it about it the next day? Okay. So a lot of us were familiar. So I want to talk about Netflix and how they do this so well. They design for social connection. So they, of course, are designing the actual content, and whether or not that content is good is not necessarily important here, but we, of course, would like it to be, and it's in their benefit to be. But what's important is that this industry as a whole is designing a way for consumers to connect with the content long after we've viewed it, and that content lives on in the social connection. So now you have the three key principles here, and I want to talk about my research and how it connects social connection as one of the key aspects of happiness. The 2019 World Happiness Report found that a strong sense of community often leads to happiness. And then similarly, the 75-year Harvard study, this is actually the longest running study on human happiness. This found that good relationships keep us happier and healthier. So we can see that social connection is an important aspect here. We see a lot of companies such as Peloton selling community, right? They allow users to high-five each other, and they're trying to replicate the sense of community at home. So I think of Peloton. I think of NFT ownerships that are actually designing communities for you to be a part of. So you have the three key principles of the framework now. So we're going to first get insightful, design on purpose, and then make it social. So you can apply this framework to traditional design. You can apply it to products and experiences, but you can also apply it to the future of tech, AI, NFTs, and Web3 experiences. So by applying this framework, you can not only unlock happiness as a critical competitive advantage for your brand, you can elevate your own personal happiness. You can create better business results and impact on the world. So if happiness is design's greatest gift and greatest result, what can you design that provides happiness to others? Thank you.